after Summerhill, in the name of the Mother, the Father, and the Child. Hello everybody, greetings from Thessaloniki, Greece. I'm Nana Hatzi, and this is my very good friend James Stevens, who has very kindly accepted my invitation to read the slides for me.
Hello, it's a great pleasure to be here with Nana and to be assisting in this very small way towards the Summerhill Festival of Childhood.
Thank you very much for your interest. Before I start, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Redhead family for running Summerhill for all of us. A big thank you to the Summerhill Festival of Childhood for inviting me to give this talk, and a big thank you to the volunteers from all over the world who have been working very hard for the festival. I have been giving talks about Summerhill to various live audiences in Greece since 1993. So it is very hard for me to now switch from talking in front of a live audience to talking in front of a camera. I will do the best I can with the help of my notes. I have been a teacher of English for over 40 years, both in Greece and abroad, and I'm an ex-member of the Summerhill staff, where I worked as a house parent and teacher of English. Summerhill has had a profound impact on my life, not only as a teacher, but also as a human being. So much so that I divide my life to two parts, before Summerhill and after Summerhill. In my career, I have taught children, young people and adults from a wide variety of social, cultural, financial, religious and ethnic backgrounds from just about every continent. I witnessed what was going on with students from kindergarten all the way to late adulthood. Amongst other things, there were all sorts of learning, emotional and behavioral difficulties, not only with the kids, but also with the adults. At Summerhill in particular, because the school gives children all the time and all the space they need to breathe and be themselves, I witnessed children expressing very strong emotions. I will give you 3 real examples. Very deep sadness in one little boy, destructive anger in another, and acute fear in a little girl. I had wanted to live at Summerhill not for the rest of my career, but for the rest of my life. However, for various personal reasons, eventually I had to return to Greece. In my almost lifelong journey, not only have children and young people been my fellow travelers, but many times they have been my teachers. They made me see how little I knew and how much I had to learn. I felt a deep sense of humility. My most important questions were where learning, emotional and behavioral difficulties came from, and where such strong emotions in such young children and adolescents came from. Before my return to Greece, and mainly afterwards, I did a lot of research for years and years. Through various sources, I slowly got answers to my questions, answers that satisfied me. And that's what I will share with you today, hoping that it will be helpful. The subject of my presentation is very broad, and ideally it requires a series of documentaries. I'm asking you to look at it as a road sign pointing towards a direction with many very interesting stopping places. Each place deserves a thorough and in-depth look. I'm well aware that there are people familiar with what I will talk about. However, I'm very certain that there are many, many people who are not, and that's why I'm giving this talk. For those of you who are interested, there will be some slides with useful information at the end of my presentation. And this presentation will be uploaded both to the Summerhill Festival of Childhood channel and to mine as well. Let's have a look now at how kids feel. Of course, we all know that kids feel very, very happy when they are with other kids and can play freely to their heart's desire. However, as life can be pretty hard at times, let's have a look at some other emotions that children feel. So, we see here a very angry little boy who is screaming his anger out with all his might. Here, we see a little boy who's not only angry, but also feels frustrated. A little girl who feels angry and sad. Here, we see an angry boy whose anger is being suppressed. In order to contain it, he has started getting tight. He has started contracting. He's not expressing his anger fully and freely. The same with this little girl. So much anger and frustration has accumulated in this little boy that things are getting dangerous. His anger is turning into hate. If the situation is not addressed now, when he's very young, this little boy may carry it into his adult life. We see the same here as in the previous photo, and all this pent-up anger cannot but be discharged. So the little boy discharges it on other kids in the school playground and elsewhere. Finally, here we see a little girl who is very sad and at the same time feels a deep grievance. I was born in 1957. At that time in Greece, at least my generation was brought up with men don't cry, good girls don't get angry. As children, we had to suppress a lot of feelings. This little girl is crying, and luckily, she's capable of crying. I included this picture to remind us that it is a natural human need to cry when we feel pain. However, because of suppression after suppression after suppression, when they are in pain, a lot of people find it very hard to cry or cannot cry at all. Just like us adults, kids feel
anger, sadness, fear, stress, anxiety, intellectual and emotional confusion, frustration, disappointment, boredom, loneliness.
I want to point out here that because the world and most schools are unnatural and not friendly towards children, on top of all of life's difficulties, schools, instead of being places of joy and other important things, schools are places that add a lot of stress and anxiety, and a lot of kids hate school. So how do they respond in order to cope with the situations that they're faced with? They respond with
withdrawal, depression, indifference, addiction to the internet, obesity, learning difficulties, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, license, aggression, bullying, delinquency, drugs.
There's a lot that can be said about all this. I will say very little. Children need to make real deep contact with us adults. Too often, we don't respond the way we should. They feel one thing and we focus on something else. They may not know or even understand exactly what is happening. And we often don't know what is happening either and how to respond in an appropriate way. We don't listen to them and they don't listen to us. This makes things very difficult for children. They gradually feel frustrated, disappointed, and so on.
Kids don't fall from the sky when they first go to school.
All teachers should remember this. Many of us are too busy teaching our subjects to do so. The math teacher is busy with math, the physics teacher with physics, and so on. Because of the whole structure in schools, we know very little to nothing about what has happened to many of them before they start school. So let's see now what happens to kids before they go to school. Amongst other things, I will present the findings of a few scientists. I have chosen some of the ones who helped me find answers to my questions and led me to a deeper understanding of myself, of children, of people, and of life in general. Of course, there are many, many others. Each scientist deserves at least a whole presentation. All of them devoted their lives to helping humanity, and I'm indebted to them all. In the slides that follow, I will let some of the pictures and the words of the scientists do the talking.
Prenatal care, conception,
life in the womb.
Marie-André Bertin, founder of OMAEP.
I couldn't find the lady's date of birth. She's in her 90s now, and I wanted to honor her for all the work she's done for prenatal education.
1991, founding of OMAEP, Organisation mondiale des associations pour l'éducation prénatale, World Organization of Prenatal Education Associations.
The initials of the organization are in French because the movement started in France.
Every association is committed to collecting and diffusing the latest knowledge about prenatal life, the mother-father-child bond, in a coherent way, which gives it a global and profound meaning. When future parents have received this information, they are empowered to optimize the harmonious development of their unborn child by simply, joyously, and freely improving the quality of their daily life according to their own nature and culture. This is achieved naturally without any exterior programming. All OMAEP's member associations respect these principles. Marie-André Bertin.
The next two slides are OMAEP's mission and OMAEP's values. For time's sake, we will not read them out. I just wanted them to be included in the video so that if you're interested, you can read them when the presentation is uploaded on YouTube.
OMAEP, since 2005, cooperation with United Nations.
In 2005, OMAEP was accorded consultancy status by the United Nations. Since then, it cooperates with and advises the United Nations so that all the latest scientific knowledge can be disseminated to all the member states. OMAEP has organized a number of world congresses and other events. In 1994, I attended the Second World Congress in Athens, and it was a real eye-opener.
10 Golden Rules for Future Parents.
This booklet can be found on OMAEP's site. What I want to stress here is that ideally, young people need to be well informed and well prepared before they become parents. Different countries have different policies. Nowadays, more and more future parents do get informed. However, we've got a long, long way to go before all this information becomes common knowledge throughout the world.
Marie-André Bertin, l'éducation prénatale naturelle, un espoir pour l'enfant, la famille et la société. Natural prenatal education, a future for youth, family and society.
You see here the French cover with the English title underneath because I couldn't find the English version. Conception, life in the womb.
Conception is the beginning of life.
A child's life starts at conception and not when they first go to school. I know that I'm stating the obvious, but I also know that a lot of us very often forget this.
So children, not after a sorrowful burial, but after a symposium of immortals, Hesiod.
700 years before Christ, the ancient Greek poet Hesiod tells us that intercourse with the aim of having a baby should take place at a time when the couple is relaxed and joyous, because the moment of conception is very important for the child's future life. Of course, this is not always possible because life is extremely unpredictable.
Children conceived out of love are beautiful and intelligent, a Greek folk tradition.
In Greek folk tradition, it is said that the love between the couple during their baby's conception also plays an important role in its future life.
George Crusos, 1951 till today. Professor Emeritus of Pediatrics and Endocrinology, Medical School Athens, Greece.
Dr. Crusos is a brilliant scientist and a very good human being. It would take too long to go just through his achievements. I will mention the bare minimum. Before returning to Greece, Dr. Crusos was clinical professor of pediatrics, endocrinology, and biophysics at Georgetown University Medical School in Washington, D.C. He is the highest cited clinical pediatrician and endocrinologist in the world and the 37th most recognized scientist in the world. He is one of the leading scientists in the stress research field, so much so that he is called Dr. Stress for his groundbreaking discoveries on the stress mechanisms in neurobiology and endocrinology.
Educate children towards virtue, Plato.
This is the title that Dr. Crusos chose for an article he wrote for a Greek newspaper. In this article, he links medical science with education, which I consider very important. He says that prenatal life, as well as the first 5 years of life, are extremely vulnerable, critical periods. He also says that stress has a serious impact on the body and behavior. The stress hormones leave behind an epigenetic imprint which accompanies the child for the rest of its life. He stresses the importance of socio-political changes in order to guarantee that mothers and children are not exposed to stress, and that children need to be exposed to enriching experiences. He also says,
from conception, human beings develop both on the basis of their genes and on the influence of the environment on those genes, that is, according to their genetics and epigenetics. Epigenetics, the Greek prefix epi, means on top of or in addition to.
The term epigenetics was introduced in the early 40s.
Epigenetics, anything other than the DNA sequence that influences the development of an organism. It shows the influence of the environment on the function of genes, DNA. The environment can cause changes in our genes, George Crusos.
I really want to stress this. We all know the importance of the environment for a child's development, but how many of us know that the environment can cause changes in our very genes? George Crusoe also tells us,
if you want to harm society in the long term, put pregnant women and children under stress.
And Bruce Lipton, the famous stem cell biologist, tells us,
parents are the genetic engineers of their children. Your children's genes reflect only their potential, not their destiny. It's up to you to provide the environment that allows them to develop to their highest potential.
And what is this environment, the first environment of a child? Of course, it is its mother's womb. A lot has already happened to her baby because a lot has already happened to her. A lot is happening to this fetus because a lot is happening to its mother.
The 9 months in the mother's womb are every human being's first school. World Organization of Prenatal Education Associations.
It's important for everyone, especially for us teachers, to remember this. Its mother is its first teacher, and her womb its first school. Let's see now what some other scientists tell us.
Fetus is aware of and experiences directly everything its pregnant mother thinks, feels, and lives.
Everything that comes from the mother and through her also from the father and the environment is recorded and stored in the fetus's neural cellular memory, shaping inclinations, character, the richness of his experiences, and its ability to learn.
Everything, positive or negative, is inscribed on its cells and manifests itself in its life after birth.
Marie-Claire Busnel, Thomas Verny, Richard Turner, Michel Audin.
Alfred Tomatis, 1920 to 2001. French ear, nose and throat, ENT, doctor. Specialist in hearing and language disorders, audio psychophonology.
Tomatis named the field of his research audio psychophonology. He devoted his life to studying the close relationship between the voice, the brain, and the ear, and made groundbreaking discoveries.
The Conscious Ear, My Life of Transformation Through Listening, Alfred Tomatis.
I read this book many, many years ago, and I couldn't put it down to the point that I couldn't sleep. It was a real eye-opener. It helps you understand why, when you talk to certain people, children or adults, they're really not listening. Why some kids learn more easily than others, why some people cannot sing in tune or dance to a rhythm, and lots of other very interesting things. The book helped me be more aware and a more helpful teacher. I strongly recommend it to everybody, and of course to all teachers. Let's now have a look at what Tomatis has to say.
Fetus hears with all its cells. Every cell is an ear. It can hear immediately following conception because every cell is literally steeped in sound waves. It receives sounds through its cellular membrane, and thus it is touched and shaped by the sound waves that surround it. The environment of the womb is exceptionally resonant. The fetus hears its mother's breathing, blood circulation, digestion, and above all, her heartbeat. It is cradled, lulled, and rocked in her womb. This is how it acquires its first sense of the rhythm that governs the world.
The rhythm of its mother's heartbeat. When a pregnant mother is calm, her heartbeat is rhythmic. It is coherent. When she is stressed, it is incoherent, something that greatly affects the fetus in a negative way.
The mind of pregnant women needs to be calm. because during pregnancy, children absorb life from the pregnant woman, as plants absorb life from the earth. Aristotle, Politics.
Ancient Greeks and other cultures knew a lot that we have since forgotten. Now we are slowly getting back on track to find the way that we have literally lost. Childbirth. Let's see now how a baby feels immediately after birth. For 9 months, this baby was in a dark womb in the warmth of 37 degrees Celsius. Suddenly, it is exposed to bright lights and loud sounds. It is held tight. How does it feel? It is in shock. It is absolutely and utterly petrified. All it can do is scream. This baby has also started going blue. This is how millions and millions of babies feel when they are born.
Frédéric Le Boyer, 1918 to 2017, French obstetrician.
Le Boyer devoted his life to correcting the drama we have just seen, the drama of childbirth.
Birth Without Violence by Frédéric Le Boyer.
This is the English version of the book Le Boyer wrote in French in 1974. Here's an extremely lucky baby that was born without violence with Le Boyer's help. It was welcomed into this world with the sensitivity, respect, and care that it deserves. Let's see what Le Boyer has to say.
Imagining birth as the baby experiences it was an entirely new way of looking at it. Once we remember that all that takes place during the first days of life on the emotional level shapes the patterns of all future reactions, we cannot but wonder how such a torture has been inflicted on children. How can beings who have been aggressed in this way, while totally helpless, develop into relaxed, loving, trusting people? Being touched and caressed, being massaged, is food for the infant. Food as necessary as minerals, vitamins, and proteins. Michel Audin, 1930 till today, French surgeon and obstetrician.
He's another very famous obstetrician and childbirth specialist. Both Le Boyer and Audin have given lectures in Greece invited by the Hellenic Association of Ergonomy. Both of them have left a remarkable legacy.
Birth Reborn, What Childhood Should Be by Michel Audin.
What childbirth should be. Let's see what Audin has to say.
To change the world, we must first change the way babies are born.
In the next slide, I only have time to briefly mention what a doula is.
Doula, a professional trained to provide emotional, physical, and informational support to pregnant women throughout their pregnancy, birth, and the early afterbirth period.
The role of doulas has a lot of very positive effects on pregnant women and childbirth. It's well worth having a look into doulas, a profession that arose in the 70s and 80s. After birth, let's see now, at the beginning of the third millennium, what else we still do in many hospitals and private clinics in many parts of the world, including in Western countries. We do this. This is a closer look of what is happening. We are the only mammal that does not do what all other mammals do. We are so cut off from nature and from our nature. We are so out of contact with nature and with our nature that we separate the newborn from its mother. I cannot stress this enough. We separate the newborn from its mother. In order to cope Babies tighten their muscles, hold their breath, and scream with all their might. We see here how tightened the baby's muscles are. In time, if babies keep not being treated the way their nature requires, they may stop crying, they may give up and withdraw into themselves. They may cut themselves off from this unwelcoming and painful world with extremely negative effects.
Swaddling.
Many people may think that we don't swaddle babies anymore. This could not be further from the truth. Go to Google and see how this crime, I repeat, this crime is still committed against babies in many parts of the world, including in the West. As soon as swaddling clothes are removed, all babies do exactly what this one is doing. They stretch in relief. And yet, we are so very, very blind that in a while, the same baby will be swaddled again. This is how babies sleep if we don't swaddle them. Free and relaxed.
Touch.
We have 5 senses. I believe the sense of touch is one of the underestimated ones. Maybe due to the COVID-19 virus, social distancing has made us appreciate it a little more. Let's now have a look at what all mammals do with their young. See how relaxed, peaceful, and content all the mothers are, and how relaxed, peaceful, and safe all the babies are. This is what being in heaven must feel like. Birds also bond lovingly with their young.
(1995) The healing power of touch.
Millions have seen this photo and know this baby story. It is on YouTube. These twin girls were born 12 weeks prematurely and weighed just 1 kilo, which is about 2 pounds. They were in separate incubators in the neonatal intensive care unit. It was not at all certain that they would survive. Near the end of their 3rd week in intensive care, the little girl on the left was struggling to breathe. Her heartbeat was soaring, her oxygen level was dropping quickly, and she was turning blue. She was close to dying. The on-duty nurse instinctively took the girl on the right and placed her in the same incubator with her sister. She embraced her sister, and after a while, all the acute, life-threatening symptoms subsided. Eventually, both little girls survived. The sheer physical contact of one baby saved the other baby's life. This incident changed the practices in intensive care units with premature babies in various parts of the world. And here we see 2 babies relaxed in each other's arms.
Bonding. Building the Foundations of Secure Attachment and Independence, a book by Marshall Klaus, John Kennel, and Phyllis Klaus.
Again, I will devote less time to the writers of this book than they deserve. Marshall Klaus was a pioneer neonatologist and pediatrician and a maternity ward reformer. John Kennel was also a pediatrician and researcher. Marshall Klaus and John Kennel's work helped in the creation of UNICEF's 1991 Baby-Friendly Hospital Initiative, a global effort to implement practices that protect, promote, and support breastfeeding Now, let's look at some pictures of babies who are exactly where they need to be, with their mothers. And again, like all mammals, we see how relaxed and safe they feel.
(2018) Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, at the United Nations General Assembly.
Jacinda Ardern is one of the women who are opening the way to a new paradigm. I believe more and more will follow and lead us back to nature's way. Her 3-month-old daughter is the first baby to be present in the United Nations General Assembly. Ms. Ardern knew how important it was not to leave her baby back home, so quite simply, her husband, the baby and Jacinda all went together to the assembly. Of course, babies can feel relaxed and safe in their father's arms too. It is very encouraging that more and more young fathers participate actively in their children's upbringing, and they too are opening the way to the new paradigm.
Grandma and Grandpa.
I also want to honor all grandparents in the world. The relationship between children and grandparents is extremely enriching for everyone involved, as long as the grandparents don't replace the parents. In my country, for financial reasons, this situation happens far too often. Here we see a baby sleeping peacefully in its grandfather's arms. Breastfeeding. Again, let's have a look at mammals. I cannot stress the importance of breastfeeding enough. Here, I will mention just one great benefit. When a baby breastfeeds, it does not only get milk so that it doesn't die of starvation, it gets physical, emotional, and energetic contact with the accompanying pleasure and deep bond between mother and child. This is of the utmost importance. The utmost importance. Notice here that they are looking into each other's eyes. They're making very deep contact with their eyes, which is also of the utmost importance. Babies cannot and should not wait to be breastfed when it is convenient for us. Nowadays, we rarely come across images like this one or the next one. They are enjoying a meal together. It is important that we all begin to get used to scenes like this one.
March 2021, Antonella Gonzalez, Argentinian basketball player.
Antonella breastfed her baby at halftime in an important basketball game. Because scenes like this are not the norm anymore, but the exception, this photo was front page news in Argentina and other countries.
2017, Larissa Waters, Australian Member of Parliament.
And here, working mother Larissa Waters went to work with her baby without disturbing the proceedings. It is very encouraging to see the situation slowly being reversed.
Wilhelm Reich, 1897 to 1957, Austrian psychiatrist and natural scientist.
He's the last scientist I will talk about. I was lucky enough to have had years of medical organ therapy, a very deep kind of psychotherapy developed by Wilhelm Reich. I owe most of my awareness and understanding to this. Reich was one of Freud's top students. In the 1930s, he discovered that Freud's libido is a real energy known from ancient times. This energy is everywhere in the universe. It permeates everything, so of course it exists in our body as well. He called it orgon energy, and he called orgonomy the science of man's relationship with nature. He studied how orgon energy functions in nature and in humans.
Muscular and character armour.
Knights used to wear armor in order to protect themselves from harm's way. Like the petrified newborn babies we saw earlier, in order to tolerate and protect ourselves from painful sensations, painful feelings, and painful situations, we contract spontaneously. We tighten our muscles and hold our breath. We armor ourselves. Very, very generally speaking, Reich called this muscular and character armor.
Muscular and character armour prevent the free flow of energy in the body, causing physical and mental illness. Reich systematically studied the emotional and physical health of parents, the conditions of conception, pregnancy, and birth, the uninterrupted contact of the infant with its mother from the moment of birth. He also studied breastfeeding and the rearing and education of children.
He was a true pioneer, way ahead of his time.
Children of the Future, on the Prevention of Sexual Pathology by Wilhelm Reich in 1950.
In this book, Reich gives answers to why we are estranged from ourselves and life, what's wrong with us and with our way of rearing our children, why humans, the most intelligent of all animals, fail to realize what every dog, whale, or mouse spontaneously senses, that we are part of nature.
For Reich, of the utmost importance were the prevention of traumas in infancy and the rearing and education of children according to the dictates of their nature. He left all his property to the Wilhelm Reich Infant Trust. His goal was to break the chain that passes on from generation to generation armor, misery, violence, and destructiveness. Contact, contactlessness.
Contactlessness is the term used by the American College of Ergonomy. These two words say it all in a nutshell. The more closely to natural laws human beings are conceived, given birth to, breastfed for as long as nature requires, and so on, the more in contact they are with themselves, with others, and with reality. The more we do things, especially from conception to the first years of life, contrary to our nature, the more cut off we are from it. We lose contact with ourselves, our feelings, our words, our actions, the effect of our words or actions on others and on the environment. We lose contact with the world around us. We lose the ability to perceive clearly. Our perceptions and the interpretation of our perceptions are blurred and twisted, hence the Tower of Babel, the misunderstandings, the difficulty or complete lack of communication we see between couples, parents and teachers with children, amongst friends, colleagues, employers, employees, politicians, countries, the world. Don't we often say, this person is not in contact with reality? Unfortunately, this is literally true. It is very, very sad that we lose the ability for empathy and compassion. We lose the ability not only to love, but also to be loved.
The fate of humanity will be shaped by the character structure of the children of the future. The big decisions are in their hands and in their hearts. Wilhelm Reich. Record of a friendship. The correspondence of Wilhelm Reich and A.S. Neal. edited with an introduction by Beverly Plassek. It's a book. They met in Norway in 1936 when Reich was 36 and Neil was 43. Summerhill was already 15 years old.
Reich, through his tireless clinical research as a psychiatrist and as a researcher on how nature works, and Neil as an educator, had similar views about life. They understood the importance of each other's work. And over the 20 years they knew each other, they developed a very deep and very loving relationship. I was truly lucky to have read this book. It was soon after reading it that I went to Summerhill, with all that followed in my personal and professional life. Now I want to link it all briefly with Summerhill.
Summerhill, children live and grow with the principles of self-regulation. They are given time and space to get in touch with themselves and their feelings. They are given outlets to express their feelings and satisfy their innate need to learn and play, to live their childhood to the fullest. Freedom and self-government offer them the opportunity to process their relationship with themselves and with others in functional, life-affirming ways. Freedom and democracy at Summerhill are vitally important. The school's main goal is the emotional and social development of children.
I hope that after all I have said today, you can appreciate much more what really happens at Summerhill. After 100 years, Summerhill School continues to be ahead of its time. It is a beacon shining its light not only into the world of education, but most importantly, into the world of childhood, into life itself. It shows how very important Neil's words are.
If the emotions are free, the intellect will look after itself.
So,
let the children play. Let them live their childhood to the fullest.
Most schools are unnatural. They focus on kids' heads, and we end up with kids like this one in the photo, with a huge head, a small body, and a tiny heart. The situation cannot get better while we perpetuate such an imbalance. Let me now go back to the main subject of my presentation. What is the present situation? We have a long way to go as humanity to do things right for parents and children. However, as we have seen, some grass here and some grass there is springing up in the desert. More sensitive parents, teachers, midwives, and other health professionals are emerging. Modern science and the speed and ease with which information is disseminated nowadays because of the internet are strong allies in this direction.
Can mothers and fathers cope with the demands of their role?
Of course, it depends on the country, and very important steps have been taken in some countries, but overall, the answer is a resounding no. No, they cannot. In most cases, fathers and mothers, mostly mothers, are like jugglers, trying to juggle a million things. For working mothers, things are even harder.
One of the most important causes of individual and social problems is the lack of adequate care and support for pregnant women, mothers, fathers, and children.
What can we do about it?
It is of vital importance to support mothers and fathers in every possible way.
We have to help fathers as well, so that they can support mothers.
It's imperative to make the world and schools friendly towards children and respect their nature. The most important investment that a state and society at large can make is to invest in parents and in children. Education, dissemination of information, in order to have more aware and more sensitive parents, educators, health professionals, politicians, and citizens. There needs to be cooperation of everybody related to the well-being of children. Parents, prenatal care consultants, midwives, obstetricians, nurses, pediatricians, child psychiatrists, teachers of all grades, and politicians. Life lessons from kindergarten all the way up to and including university.
By life lessons, I mean all this knowledge we have seen here and other things that I didn't mention. This knowledge needs to reach the average person. It needs to become common knowledge, honoring parenthood. The first thing we have to do is to honor parenthood. For example, we could have statues like these that you will see here everywhere, so that all of humanity can become more aware of their extremely important contribution. I seriously believe that not even parents themselves are aware enough of how important they are to the world. Honoring motherhood. And of course, we need to honor motherhood. Motherhood does not have the place it deserves in society. Far from it. Once a year, we celebrate Mother's Day, we send cards and we say nice things about mothers, but ask any mother in the world what she has to juggle in order to bring up her children. We need to honor motherhood 365 days a year with fewer words and a lot more actions. My proposal, and I do believe that in time it will happen on a wide scale. So my proposal is for mothers to be given a very generous maternal allowance, at least until their kids are 4 to 5 years of age. If mothers had the support and resources they need, the whole of society would benefit greatly. We would have less violence, fewer crimes, and a whole lot more additional benefits. Prevention is much, much better than cure. Can you see here that the earth is engraved on the mother's belly? Pregnant women do carry the whole planet, the whole of humanity in their womb. So, if we do things right, children will not lose their natural inquisitiveness, which you can see in this baby's eyes. They will not lose their sincerity. They will remain capable of being joyful. And they'll remain capable of making deep eye contact with the world around them. They will retain their sweetness and vivacity. They will live at peace with themselves and the world. Just before I close, please bear with me for 5 more minutes. To make things easy for whoever is interested, 7 slides follow with useful information about what I have said, plus some important information about things I didn't have time to say. We will not read them out. I will just comment on 1 or 2. I will just pause for a few seconds for each slide so that it is recorded on the video. Here, look at the first video. It is in Spanish, but there are very few words, so you can see A Birth Without Violence by Le Boyer himself. It's well worth watching it. I wanted to finish my presentation by playing for you the last 2 videos you see on the screen in bold, and make a couple of comments on them. However, for time's sake, I won't. After over 40 years of being with children and parents, this is what I wanted to share with you. A lot of things need to change in schools, but a lot of things need to change before children go to school. We need to get to the root of things. In this way, we can prevent, or at least minimize, all sorts of learning, emotional and behavioral difficulties and other individual and social problems. We have gone so far astray and we have made life so complicated and difficult that it may take a long time. However, things are changing and will continue to change. I firmly believe that the ways of nature will ultimately prevail. In the meantime, let's do the best we can. Thank you very much for your interest and attention. Bye-bye.